Prime Minister Narendra Modi right now in Italy. He's held a series of meetings and bilaterals, including with the French President Emmanuel Macron, the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, both who head into elections, and of course Ukraine's President Zelenskyy. Our next report gets you details about the key priority when it comes to G7 and how India's agenda is to ensure that the outcomes of G20, which was India's presidency, can be dovetailed with the outcomes of G7. Geeta Mohan gets us more in this report.
On his first foreign tour after returning as the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi is attending the G7 summit in Italy. Though India is not a member of the group of countries with advanced economies, it's been specially invited. With a GDP of $3.94 trillion, India boasts an economy larger than 4 G7 members: Canada, France, Italy, and the UK, and is one of the fastest growing economies worldwide. All eyes will be on the Narendra Modi-Giorgia Meloni meet. Meloni herself is fresh off a bumper victory in the EU elections and has emerged as one of the most popular leaders in G7. As the summit kicked off in Puglia, Meloni's Namaste greeting for global leaders is breaking the internet. With the G7 leaders in Italy, the Prime Minister held key bilaterals with Rishi Sunak and Emmanuel Macron. A bilateral meet with US President Joe Biden could also be on the cards. Prime Minister Modi will hold talks with Italian Prime Minister Meloni, who is chairing the G7 summit this year. A meet with Canadian Prime Minister is not in Modi's plan. Days ahead of the G7 summit, Khalistani extremists vandalized a bust of Mahatma Gandhi in Italy, writing slogans related to slain Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Gaza, wars and climate change will be the big focus at the G7 summit this year. Bureau Report, India Today.
And to help us understand what's happening in Italy, apart from Geeta Mohan, also with me is Ambassador Rajiv Dogra. He served in Italy. He was our ambassador to Italy and somebody who follows these geopolitical developments very closely. Ambassador Dogra, welcome on 5 Live. What do you make of the optics so far? And of course, that warm hug, Ukraine's President Zelenskyy came, hugged Prime Minister Narendra Modi. What would that conversation lead to, sir?
Well, as far as the optics are concerned, that was the first part of your question. Nothing could be better than a southern Mediterranean setup. And Puglia is one of the towns, coastal towns, with pristine white sand and playground of the rich for ages, from ever since the time started. So the setting is wonderful, but the participants are a little apprehensive of what waits them at home, because either they have faced elections where they have not done well, or they are going to face elections where they are expected not to do well. For example, in France, Macron has called the National Assembly elections. In UK, Sunak faces a certain defeat. In Germany, President Schulz's party had a massive defeat in the European Parliament elections. And as far as Biden is concerned, there are issues about him in terms of his fitness, and there are doubts whether he'll be in as a president after the elections in November. So to expect major decisions from a setting like this will not be realistic. But to expect this setting not to do anything at all in terms of policies would also be unrealistic, because at the moment there are two major issues which are facing the world, and more particularly countries of G7. One is the Israel-Hamas issue. The second is the developments and the war in Ukraine. They have taken a major step in trying to utilize the interest earned on the money, $300 billion, that West has sort of kept on hold in its banks. So $50 billion actually is Russian money, which the West has decided to loan to Ukraine.
Sir, but
Now,
wouldn't this anger the Russian President Vladimir Putin because he's used words to the effect that now we've reached a point of no return. So instead of finding a solution, they seem to be triggering the war even further.
That's it. Now, a weak leadership in the West, a leadership which is uncertain of its own future, is taking major decisions which are going to destroy the peace in many ways, at least in Europe. Because besides this issue which you pointed out of $50 billion, which has angered President Putin, there is also the issue of Biden announcing that American-supplied missiles can strike deep within Russia. And that is why the Russian reaction of sending a nuclear-powered submarine and also a major ship to off the coast of Cuba. So things, if they are not monitored carefully and cautiously, could lead to a situation where things go beyond control, and it is not just confined to Ukraine. So certainly the situation is fraught with danger. Situation needs a firm and sure handling, but I'm afraid at the moment West does not inspire that confidence. So
right now, when we talk about these countries, so Prime Minister Narendra Modi has already had important bilaterals with the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who goes into elections with the French President Emmanuel Macron. Once again, he goes into elections. American President Joe Biden will also be facing elections. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi goes there after winning 3 elections back to back. Prime Minister for 10 years and now for another 5 years as the head of NDA. How would they be looking at the Prime Minister? Is he, now being respected as a senior global statesman and political leader, sir?
Well, there are 2 sides to this issue. Number one, Prime Minister Modi and India have a line open with both sides, with both Russia and the West. And one example of that was when he met President Putin one year back, I think, he gave out the message that this is not the age of war.
Yeah.
Now, normally, such blunt statements at a time when the other side is actually engaged in a do or die battle, Russian position wasn't so good at that time. So still, President Putin took it in the right spirit, understood the message, and there was a move towards some accommodation. It did not materialize. That's a different thing. But the fact is that West wanted to send a message, and it chose Prime Minister Modi as the right person to convey that message in a proper, dignified manner, which it did. The second was, once again, when the war was going out of hand, America requested India, or Biden requested Mr. Modi to again reach out to Russia so that the nuclear weapons were not used.
Yes.
Because there was a time when there was a threat of use of nuclear weapons because West was trying to instigate Russia towards the brink. So again, that was a successful intervention, a successful reaching out to Russia. So his presence there are others who have been invited like Brazil, Turkey, and
11 outreach
Algeria
countries.
And so on.
Yes, sir.
But Mr. Modi's presence in Puglia, in Italy, has that significance that here is a leader who's got a stable mandate, who's been there for 10 years, and who's been there for the rest of his term. So, unlike the Western leaders, here is someone who has the experience. And here is someone who has also the positive experience of reaching out to Russia and then reaching back to the West also with whatever advice or whatever communication he wishes to convey. So India has a role to play. How important that is would depend also in a large measure on the actions that West takes. because you
Okay.
cannot keep on troubling the other side and expect that it will keep on conceding, it will keep on bending over. So West also has to realize that they are at a moment in history where future generations may not judge them very positively.
But has the West painted itself in a corner the way things are right now? And the fact that the statements that seem to be coming from G7 countries, and especially after the step of taking the interest out of the Russian money and giving it to Ukraine, $50 billion, also promising them additional weapons, training, and all. Would this, one, not anger Russia even more and not spur the battle even more? And the focus then remains conflict, or does that actually spur the conflict industry in the United States? Helps the US but puts Europe in a dark spot?
Well, that has been the speculation right through, and that has been the record of American war industry, that they want wars to go on so that they can prosper. Their industries can keep on running. So that is there, and that can't be wished away. That's a fact of American life. But the larger thing is that they are going down a course where they have shut down all the doors of retreat.
Yes.
Because if we keep on provoking the other side, then there comes a point where the other side says that enough is enough. For example, I just quoted the Russian presence of Cuba in terms of the submarine and the ship. Now, that can go out of hand. Supposing there's a provocation from American side against one of these, it could be worse than the confrontation of 1962 between President Kennedy and Khrushchev.
Oh, absolutely. The Cuban Missile Crisis. There are several commentators in America who are now saying that Russia has hypersonic missiles. Russia's already exercising close to Cuba. In case something happens there, America has no defense against it. Where is President Joe Biden taking the United States of America? These are, of course, some of the voices that we hear from the United States of America. But let me for a moment focus on India and Italy.